Hello and welcome to 4 Random Books, episode 3. God, this has come quickly. Mainly because I'm recording all on the same night. Hence the shirt hasn't changed. So, but I have run out of that liquid, so I might be disappearing for that in a second. This is going to be naval aviation themed. I'm going to start off with this lovely little Sea Flight by Hugh Popham. And its dedication reads, "To those who are not mentioned in the following pages, and to those who are, I make whatever apology is fitting. To all of them I dedicate this book." North Atlantic, a place of terror for pilots like Hugh Popham serving on HMS Indomitable in a Hurricane squadron of the Fleet Air Arm. In his gripping account of the war at sea, he tells how they ranged the oceans from West Indies to the east, from Ceylon to Madagascar, patrolling the convoy runs which kept the lifelines open for the Western Allies in the perilous years of 1940 to 45. It's a beautiful little book. It takes you all through his training. It takes you through everything, and it's just, it is such a gorgeous read. Some of the quotes in here, let's see if I can find my favourite one. There were other minor excitements. Steve came back from a patrol with a bullet in his engine, which ceased finally as he caught a wire, and Dickie Howarth came back with a bullet in his bottom. There was blood on his parachute pack, and the excitement knew no bounds. An albacore failed to return from an AS patrol. Jack Pike, his observer, Colonel Brown, the Colonel was a courtesy title that exactly matched his somewhat ponderous geniality, and the air gunner. Nor were search aircraft successful in seeing any trace of them, but as their area had not taken them more than a mile from the coast, no great anxiety was felt on their behalf. They had probably rowed ashore in their dinghy and were waiting for the operation to be concluded. Then on the second day, we had another break from the monotony of town patrols. The Dame Trousseau, which we had seen at anchor in the harbour, had been hit by the albacores on the first morning, and indeed driven ashore, but she was still able to cover the approaches of the town, and was making a nuisance of herself to the troops ashore. Inspired by Rear Admiral Dennis Boyd, who was flying his flag in Indomitable as Rear Admiral aircraft carriers, 6 Hurricanes were sent in to strafe her. As we came out of the air operations room after being briefed, Steve remarked casually, "I've always heard there's no future in beating up other people's warships." A notion, I confess, that had occurred to me, but there was no holding Butch, even if we had wanted to. The semblances of death and glory appealed powerfully to his half-finished temperament. We boosted off and flew in a low all the way, over the sea, over the low, bare hills on the northern part of the island, until the great harbour opened up in front of us. With the sloop in the shallows to the north of the town, she had steam up, and as we raced across the water, she let loose volumes of oily smoke that blew in a dense cloud towards us. One after another, we tore into her, guns blazing. The tracer showed up briefly as it went sparkling into the smoke, our tracer going in and theirs coming out. I held it, thumb hard down, and the intoxicating drumming of the 8 machine guns shaking the whole aircraft into the smoke until a yard or two in front of me the mast aerial suddenly loomed up. I hauled back on the stick, and we went wheeling round for another run. None of us was hit, and when we left her, she was burning merrily. Despite our skepticism as to the efficiency of .303 bullets against her plates, she was abandoned soon afterwards. The army was still held up to the west of the town, and that night the destroyer Anthony, with great skill and daring, crept into the harbour and came alongside the quay, where she landed 50 Royal Marines. While she made her getaway under fire, they sneaked into the town and almost immediately captured the naval depot. At the same time, the army was on its way in, and by daybreak the following morning, it was all over. This is a jam-packed little book. It was published in 1954, although this edition it's published in 1974. First published by William Kimber and Co. Limited, and then 1974 by First Futara Publications edition. And it includes The Making of a Pilot, Part 1, Part 2, Sea Time, HMS Indomitable, then Interlude, Asylum, Part 3, Sea Time, HMS Illustrious, Campania, and Striker. Conclusion, Afterthoughts. It's a must read. I have a feeling this is going to be slightly longer than 15 minutes. There again, I might go through this one quite quickly. Ark Royal by Mike Rossiter. If you're interested in the story of this book, of this particular carrier, this is the book to go to, because it's got everything included in it. From her beginning to her end, all her operations, all her voyages, it's all in here. I'm not sure I agree with some of the history about her development and design. I think he's going for a very standardized perception of it, and it's not what I tend to extol, but it's a good book, and it's got some beautiful pictures, and it's got some wonderful laying out, and I love the way he's even-handed when it comes to the skewer, the swordfish, all these things, and I love this pictures in here, which is really quite cool. They show various people hunting the Ark Royal, what they were doing to try and find her, recover parts of her, prove she was down there. And it's just beautiful pictures. And what survives of a swordfish, of a fulmar underwater. And honestly, I am very surprised my colleague Jamie from Bilge Pumps and Armoured Carriers fame, after seeing that picture, that fulmar was underwater and still in that quiet condition, hasn't dived down there, free-dived down there to recover it himself. He is fairly obsessed when it comes to fulmars. It's a good book. I'm going to do another one. Book about a ship to a book about an aircraft on a raid. The Fairy Sawfish. David Wragg's The Story of the Taranto Raid, and it is almost mythical, this book. Almost mythical, the raid. It's got some absolutely exceptional pictures in it. It's got some wonderful content. David is an exceptional writer. Again, I don't always agree with everything he says, but he does include this favourite quote, which Drakenfennel has said on Bilge Pumps a time or two. They say in the Air Force the landing's okay if the pilot gets out and walks away, but in the Fleet Air on the prospects are grim if the landing's piss poor and the pilot can't swim. It's sort of fatalistic wartime humour, but it's there. But I like the fact that he has quotes from both sides. And he has this one, sort of this thing. This is from 1938 when Cunningham relates. So it's. I had the book around me somewhere. Cunningham's Autobiography. I thought it was behind me, but obviously I've moved it. We lunched on board the Comte de Cavier with Admiral Riccardi and came to the conclusion that he must have embarked the whole catering staff and band from one of the best hotels in Rome, so distinguished was his entertainment. Afterwards, he took us round his palatial and highly decorated private apartments and took some pride in pointing out a book, The Life of Nelson, which always lay on a table by his bedside. His subsequent actions during the war showed that he had not greatly profited from his nightly reading. I love Admiral Cunningham. I love this book. It's got the sort of things in here which are really, really cool. Sorry, it's annoying me a bit that it was behind me and now I can't find it. I'm sure I have. Oh, there it's sitting in front of me. It's literally there. The whole book has picked out quotes with a similar sense of acerbic wit, and it's just good to read. It really is good to read. So, Little Swordfish. This was done by Orion Books, and it was published in 2003. Final book of the 4 random books. And I've tried to rush through a bit of the others because this one is going to take just as long as the first one did. John Wellham with Naval Wings. The Autobiography of a Fleet Air Pilot in World War II. Wellham was appointed to 824 Squadron HMS Eagle and flew one of the 3 string bags, Ferry Swordfish, that raided the Italian base in Bomba, sinking 4 ships with 3 torpedoes. They demonstrated the crucial role of air power in modern naval warfare. Wellham was then chosen to take part in the second strike on Taranto from HMS Illustrious. His bravery led to a victory that humbled forever the great capital ships of the world. With his detailed and experienced grasp of FAF exploits around the globe, including operations against U-boats in the Atlantic and the final struggles against Japan with the Forgotten Fleet, Naval Wings paints World War II on a wide, colourful canvas. And it really, really does. These are some of the chapters. In the beginning, they taught me to fly. Frontline Squadron, the best of both worlds, China Fleet Carrier, we go to war, 4 for the price of 3, no longer alone, the famous victory, the aftermath, return to routine, Operation Red Sea, South Atlantic Station, the road home, the home front, back to the sand, escort carrier, and last lap. Appendices, As a foreword provided by Rear Admiral L.D.G. Garrett, and preface by John Wellham. Let's see. I considered that I was conned into writing this book by Graham Mottram, curator of the Fleet Air Museum, as a result of my having dictated onto cassettes my memories of some of the operations in which I took part. My arm was twisted further by my son, who seemed to feel that there should be some written answers to questions: what did your daddy do in the war? I had always felt that sufficient books had already been written about the subject, but was assured that few writers had simply recorded their personal memories in their own words. This book, therefore, is just such a record. It's based on my own recollections, aided by my flying logbook and photographs taken at the time. Items such as dates and squadron numbers have been checked from official records, but I have found that those frequently differ. I am grateful to the Fleet Air Museum for their efforts to clarify many of the points of disagreement. After these many years, my memory may not be serving me as well as I could wish, so I can only apologize for any errors, and hope that readers will obtain some entertainment from the story. Any criticisms or opinions or events and personalities are, of course, entirely my own. It's a good book to read. It again has some lovely pictures in it. Wildcat, Swordfish, escort carrier, landing a Seafire. Some Seafire landings were exciting. It's a glorious book. And it's worthwhile reading. It really is. Let's look at Operation Red Sea. When we reached the airfield, we were surprised to find that virtual runways had been marked on the sand by black-painted petrol drums. This was because of an almost continual mirage which made it impossible to judge height, and the drums had been used like the lights of a flare path at night. Arrangements had been made for us to stay the night in the hotel, to provide us with a reasonable dinner and beds. It also had a bar, which we all felt that we needed after 8 hours flying. We met some alcoholic and very disgruntled army officers who had been there for some time and thought that they had been forgotten. It's a good book. And now I'm well over my 15 minutes. So thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed this one. And that is number 3. Take care.